Farms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're all having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast, and that says the wrong thing. Number 1934. We're talking research plans for genealogy tips. I'm just going to change this one up here. I think all the other ones are changed. All right, now I said the same thing. All right, so we're talking research plans tonight. What are research plans? Why do we need them? And what do we do about them? No, they're just anything. I hope you've all had a super fantastic sparkling Saturday. Ours has been busy, super busy. We got up, we went for our walk, we came home. We then went down to Panera Bread and picked up one of their breakfast sandwiches, one of the new ones that had steak and egg in it. Oh, I love steak and eggs. Steak and eggs and chips is steak, eggs, and chips, one of my favorite breakfasts. This one didn't have steak, eggs, and I'm talking hot chips here, not fries, not potato chips. Although, yeah, okay. Anyway, mine was going somewhere else. It's very tired right now. And so I had this egg and steak sandwich on ciabatta bread. Oh, it was so good. It was so good. Also got some bagels to throw into the freezer. I like having stuff just in the freezer if you just need them, something quick and handy and that sort of stuff. And I had different flavors in that, and I got home and there was no cream cheese. I'd ordered cream cheese. So I had to call first of all, I get down there and find out one of the things I'd ordered you can't get till later on in the day because it hasn't come out of the oven yet. And they've been busy doing all the breakfast stuff. So they had to refund me that. So then I had called them up to let them know that I didn't have any cream cheese. Thankfully I didn't need it right there and then because I had my steak sandwich. So I was talking to the manager, so I've just processed your refund. I says, oh, and you can't process a refund for the cheese? She says, no. I says, okay. Well, I'm about to go on a call, and then immediately after that one, I have another one that I have to get onto. So I'm not sure if I'm going to get down between them. I says, but you guys are open till 9 o'clock tonight, so I can call them before then. That's not a problem. And she said, well, what's your favorite pastry? And I said, chocolate croissants. There was no hesitation. And she says, I'll put some in the bag for you for inconvenience you so much. So when I, between my two meetings today, I managed to hop in the car, drive. Zeffy got a couple of car rides today. We hopped in the car after our first meeting, which was our mastermind group, and drove down to Panera Bread, let them know who I was. They came out, gave me a bag that had my cream cheese in there and 2 chocolate croissants. Oh, guess what I'm having for breakfast tomorrow? I'm having a chocolate croissant for breakfast, and then the other one can wait till the next day. Yes, so very happy about that. Then got back in time for my next meeting, and that one finished about half an hour ago. My brain is like mush right now, and I'm going to talk to you about researching tonight. We've got to get this stuff done, I tell you. Oh, and Zeffy is doing much better. I got some ear cleaner stuff for her so I could clean out her ears. And so we did an ear cleaning thing last night. It was absolutely hilarious. I've got this nice thick bath mat, one of those ones with the memory foam in it. So I put that in the bottom of the bath and I've got this garden tub bath in the bathroom. I don't use tub. This is my use of tubs. This is how I use a tub in the bathroom. I put the bath mat in there so Zeffy wouldn't slide around on it. I had to chase her around the house to grab her last night. I had to chase her around the house to grab her. I finally grabbed her, put her in the bathtub, sat on the edge of the bathtub with her sitting between my legs, and had a towel that went across my lap and across the back of her head. I then got the thing, squeezed it into her ear like I'd been told how to do, had to hold her ear and her. It was very difficult doing this person, but I managed. I had to hold her ear straight because the canal is an L shape. So you got to pull it up a little bit so it straightens out a little bit. Put the thing on there, do the massage, get all the squishy noise going for about 30 minutes. 30 minutes, jeepers, that would have been a long time. 30 seconds. And then grab the towel and put it over her head and said, shake. That way the bathroom wasn't sprayed with cleaner. Then I got the cotton wool and swiped it all out. And we got rid of a lot of gunk out of her ears last night. And then on this morning's walk, she did great. She did start getting a little dizzy towards the time we got home. So I figured, and this air wash, they say you can do it twice a day. You can do it, when a dog has an ear infection, do it twice a day. Or you can do it once a day, every day for a week. And so I guess let's get another ear cleaning tonight. But she was so much better today. So much better. So much better. So anyway, on to researching. I tell you, my brain is mush. Why should we have a research plan? So a research plan when you're doing genealogy is really very, very helpful. It helps save you a lot of time. You define your research goal. You can clearly state that, and your research goal is, what is it you want to achieve? What is that question that you want to answer? So when I get on a discovery call with a client, I'm like, what do you want to find? Well, I want to find who's my gene. No, we need to narrow it down. We can't just do anybody. We have to pick one thing that you want to know, and we ask a question. So it could be something as simple as find the birth record of John Smith, born around 1850 in New York. John Smith being your relative who was born around 1850 in New York. So then, put that question at the top, or put that at the top there, and that's what your goal is for this research project. And this could be a research project that's part of a bigger project that you're doing on John Smith. You could be doing a in-depth study on John Smith's life, but for this particular sub-project, you want to find his birth record. You've been told that he was born around 1850 in New York. Now you need to go and prove it. And then start gathering existing information. Review all of the information records that you already have about the ancestor or the event, and organize them to avoid any duplication and identify gaps. So the best way to do this is put everything in chronological order. Then you will see where the gaps are. Post-its come in handy at this point. Index cards come in handy at this point. Post-it tags, the little ones, come in handy as well. If you're doing it on like an Excel spreadsheet or something, you might have the years across the top with what the events were underneath. And then you can put columns in there that are highlighted to show that you have gaps in there. You can start using color coding at that point as well. And so you've gathered all the information, you reviewed all the information that you already have, that you know about the ancestor, and you've organized it into a chronological order so that you can see very easily where any gaps are, and it will avoid duplication. Because in your records, you'll also say, when you're putting this timeline together, I've got an itch coming in my nose and I know I'm about to sneeze. One moment, please. Thank you. Excuse me. Oh, it's still itchy. I hate that little, it feels like someone's crawling around in there. I know. Sorry about that. So gather your information, organize it into chronological order. This way you can avoid duplication. And when you're putting in there what records you already have, cite your sources as well, because this will help you avoid duplication. Like if you see you're going to one site, have a look to see, have you already been to that site? And this is where this timeline comes in handy. Identify the question to answer. So break your goal into smaller specific questions like, where was John Smith living in 1850? Or what church records are available for the area? Specify a time frame and location. Narrow your research to focus on a specific time period and geographical area. This reduces the scope and helps you focus your efforts. So, we're looking in New York. Where in New York? Are we talking New York City? Are we talking upstate New York? Where in New York are we talking? Where within the state do we know? Do we have any information that points to a certain, oh, I'm sorry, my nose is going like crazy right now. Do we have information on where in New York? Was it New York City? What part of New York City was it in? Was it in upstate New York? What information do we know about where he was living in New York in 1850? He may or may not be on the 1850 census. Now, New York State did 5-year census on the fives. So you had the federal census on the zeros. So 1850 would have been a federal census, but 1855 would have been a New York State census. So maybe you could find records there. And this kind of flows. So determine relevant record types. Decide which type of records you're most likely to answer your question, such as census records, birth certificates, church registers, land deeds, or immigration records. So in this case, we can look at looking for birth certificates, or even a parish record for a baptism. Parishes quite often kept records of everything that happened in town, everything that happened within the church. So births, deaths, marriages, baptisms, everything. So the types of records. So as I just said, 1850 would have been the federal census. 1855 would have been the New York State census. So now you've narrowed down that time period to 1850. But he may have been born in 1849, which means he would be on the 1850 census. See, you got to think of things like that. So even if he was born around 1850, so that could be 2, 3, even up to 5 years on either side of that date. It's just how things work. So you've got like this time period that you're looking in. Do you have the names of his parents? What is that in your information? So for him, for that time in 1850, we're looking at census records, we're looking at birth certificates, we're looking at church registers to see if there's any mention of him and his family in there, so we can to help direct us to where his birth information is. Locate available resources, identify repositories, websites, or archives that may hold the records that you need. Create a list of specific databases, libraries, or record collections to consult. So this is where you're now making the plan. You've got, here is my question. We've got all this information gathered together, all in chronological order. We've identified the question. We've got a specific time frame and location that we're looking at. We've determined what relevant record types we need to look at. Now we need to locate where are these records held, and create a list of specific databases, libraries, or record collections to consult. And then, so this is where you can go to familysearch.org and have a look at their research wiki under New York State, and it will tell you where you're likely to find birth records for around 1850. I tell you, it has a whole bunch of information. It'll have the history of the state. It has what records are available online, what ones are not, where you've got to go to get certain records and that sort of thing. It will even give you may even give you information on if you want copies of certificates, what you have to do to get them. You got to develop a search strategy. So outline specific search terms, filters, and variations to use in your research, including different spellings of last names, date ranges, and any wildcard options. So even though you have John Smith, S-M-I-T-H, he could be S-M-Y-T-H. He may have an E on the end. He may not have an E on the end. There's people come up with different variations. It's very interesting to see. If you go to, what was the name of that site we were on the other day? I think it was Family Names. Nope. I found it under research last name variations. House of Names. If you go to House of Names, houseofnames.com is a really cool website. It doesn't have every name in there, but you can research the last name. And when you research the last name, it will come up with the what the name means, the early origins of the name. Like I'm looking up Smith right here, right now. Early history of the Smith family, spelling variation. So this one's got S-M-I-T-H, S-M-Y-T-H, S-M-Y-T-H-E, and others. Now, they do have these little booklets that you can go and purchase, which will get, because they keep saying and others. The and others will be revealed when you buy their book. And they have like a history of the book. They will put in this, and House of Names is really cool because it also puts in the early notables of the Smith family. I'm looking up Smith. Smith World Ranking as far as the number of people that in that country that has that name. Like in New Zealand, New Zealand ranks Smith as number 1 with 13,667 people with the last name of Smith at the time of printing of this. It talks about migration of the Smith family to Ireland, to the United States, to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, West Indies. Then it has contemporary notables of the name Smith post 1700. It was actually quite interesting because I put Eakins in there, and I actually have a copy of the Eakins little booklet, of the booklet that they have, and I took a screenshot of the contemporary notables of the last name Eakins post 1700 and sent it to my parents and go, how many names on here do you recognize? My cousin was on that list. He's a very smart kid. Well, I guess he's not a kid anymore. Then it will have historic events for the family. Like I'm looking at Smith right here. Maybe it's my Amazon order being delivered. They've got like different flight things that happened. in plane crashes, Empress of Ireland. I mean, it's a fascinating website. I could get lost in this website forever, just going in there, and it's called houseofnames.com. It's a very, very cool site. You go in there, put in last name. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have every last name, but I put in there names that I'm researching just to see what information comes up. And if I want to, then some of their books are not very expensive. They're like, 10, 15 bucks. Some of them get more expensive based on how many pages that they have, and they all come in PDF, downloadable PDF files. And depending on what name I'm researching, I might purchase that book to give me more background based on the information that's on their website, because they will give you snippets of what's in the book, and it's like, let me go and have a look, see what else is in there. That's my order being delivered. It's okay, Zeffy. She's whining a little bit. Where did I get up to on my list? So outline specific search terms, filters and variations, and use including different names, different ways the name was spelt. I know for my mother-in-law's name, I'm thinking I'm up to like 21 or 27 different ways of spelling her last name. It is, that's really fun. I even put in my second great grandfather. Hang on. Yeah, my second great grandfather's last name Brazier, because I know that there's Brayser, Brayzer, Braiser, Brizer, Brasye, there's so many different, and I put that into that thing, and they didn't have any listings of that name, even if I tried the different spelling variations, but they didn't have a name. Anyway, back to, so looking at different date ranges, wildcard options, different ways of spelling names. Then set a timeline for your research. Decide how much time you'll dedicate to the plan, and create checkpoints to check your progress, to track your progress along the way. Like, you'll have your timeline, your chronological order of the information that you have already. You know where the gaps are. You know what your research question is. So which gap is it going to fill in on your timeline? How long do you think it's going to take you to research that? Document your process. So using your research log, we talked about research logs yesterday, to record where you have searched, what terms you have used, what you found, even if you didn't find anything, just put, I went to this website, looked up this information here, there was nothing to be found. That way you're not going to waste time going, oh, well, let me go try it. That way, this also prevents you from going back and duplicating your research as well. When you've got your research log, you already know which sites you've been to. You know which ones don't have the information. You know which ones have the information because you have the citations written down, and it will prevent duplication on the work as well. Evaluate and adjust periodically. And even if you're like on a website and you're searching different terms and stuff, put what terms on your research log, put what terms you searched for when you were in there, what came up. If nothing came up, just put nothing came up. At least you're not going to be going back to that site to research those terms again. So you're not going to be duplicating your work. Evaluate and adjust. Periodically review your plan to assess your progress. Adjust your approach if you uncover new information or need to explore alternative strategies. Like, you could be coming up something and something's going to take you down a rabbit hole, which happens often in genealogy, where you're looking at one bit of information and you're like, oh, that's that information I need for that person. Or, oh my gosh, they brought up this hint here. Wonder where that goes. Stay on task. Make note of what you have discovered, where you discovered it, put it over here. Put it over here for now. You can maybe use one of these, note it in your notebook or on your research log or anything else. Highlight it in a completely different color to what you're using for everything else, so that you know to come back to that later on. And this is when it comes to evaluate and adjust. When you're going through your plan and you're thinking, okay, I'm not finding anything, that hint that you saw earlier on may be the key that you need to unlock things. So then you can go back through your notes and go, oh, I went to that site, but I didn't want to go down that site because it didn't have birth records. But maybe we need to go down this way to discover something else that could lead to where the birth records are. So let's go and have a look at that. Once you have completed your plan, summarize your results in a clear and concise format. Highlight what you've discovered and note any new questions that arose. Like, you might even find, for example, a client of mine was looking for her grandfather. Yes, her grandfather. He was born in New York, in a county in upstate New York. And we had around when he was born. And so we found his birth record with his parents' names on there. Now, what was interesting was they had the father's name here. They had the mother's name here. They had where and when he was born, they had his name and his birth date. But he was not the only person with that name born around that time in that same county in New York that had the same mother's name but a different father's name. That was the only difference between, and the birth date. They were born 4 to 6 weeks apart in the same county, both with the same, both first name, middle name, and last name were identical. The mother's name was identical except for her maiden name. So her first name was the same. So there was 2 people born with the same names about 4 to 6 weeks apart in the same county. They both had, their mothers both had the same first names. Their fathers had different first names, and the child had the same, the 2 boys that were born 4 to 6 weeks apart had the same first, middle, and last name. So I'm like, what are the odds that 2 women with the same name married brothers or cousins with the last name? So there's a lot more research we have to do in that one, because I was going along and thinking, oh, well, this is pretty cool because she did not have a very common name. Her first name was not very common. But when I found her obituary, I'm like, oh, that's not his wife. So on more research, that's how I uncovered the second person that was born with the same name. He didn't show up in my original results. And so then I had to work through and untangle these 2 guys' lives for where their mothers lived and everything else. And so I then had to go back and very carefully untangle these 2 different guys and figure out who was who and who married who and which father that they had, because that was the only difference between the 2, and looking at marriage records to find the father's name on there to figure out which one I was supposed to be looking at and things like that. So sometimes you be very careful when you are researching that you don't have people with the exact same name that were born around the same time, 2 different fathers. Yeah, that was a very interesting one that was a fun one to untangle. I enjoyed that one. So when you're summarizing, you've completed your plan, summarize your results in clear and concise format, highlight what you discovered, and note any new questions that arose. So you may have found the information for John Smith, born in New York around 1850, but you might find that, hang on, we also noted that there was another John Smith that was born around that time, close to that area, but had different parents' names. Could they be related since they were from that same area and that family name seems to be very prominent in that area, which I have found on another client's one that I was researching. It was very easy to follow. It was almost too easy to follow the family because the family lived in one particular area of, what state were they in? Oh, it wasn't New York. It was one of the New England ones. Might have been Connecticut. It was either Connecticut or Massachusetts. It was one of those 2. And they were in a particular area around between these 2 towns in the state. And the 2 towns were not very far apart. And so you kind of had to be careful because there were so many people with the same last name, and it wasn't a common last name either. But then you had to be very careful who belonged to who, figuring out who belonged to who, because there were some people that had the same first names but had different parents' names. So you had to be very careful of what you found. But then other questions may have come up from that, like, who are these other people? And you're keeping notes of these other people as you're going along, because how are they related to the person that you're looking for? Because they were all in that area, and there's this big concentration of this family in that area. They're all born they're all buried in basically in the same cemetery. So going through the cemetery was a huge thing, because the cemetery was dominated by this one name. And then from there, once you've summarized the findings on your John Smith 1850 New York, you can then plan your next steps. Use what you have learned to create new research goal or refine the current one. Sometimes it's just we've managed to find out this information, but it still really doesn't really answer our question. Or because of that, we've now discovered this family that lives in this particular town, where all these people there have the same last name. Are they related? Are they not related? What is the family connection? It's like in Warboys, England. Warboys, where my ancestors come from. You know, the Eakins lived in the manor house for a certain number of years while they were there, but there were also other Eakins that were in Warboys. Were they related to the ones that lived in the manor? So slowly over time, I'm picking away at those ones, and every now and again, I'm like, oh, let's go back to Warboys and have another look in here. And which one are we going to have a look at this time? Like, you know, and you've got the James George William, Thomas, and John, the 5 most common male names in the Eakins family. It is like looking for John Smith. So taking those names and seeing these guys that are all around this area, it's like, how are they related to the one that live in the manor house? And then you've got those that are over in Rounds, Northumberland, which is, I think, the next county over. Are they related to the Eakins that are in Huntingdonshire? So you had Huntingdonshire, you had Northumberland, and then there was Cambridge. And Huntingdon's now been absorbed by Cambridge. It's now part of Cambridge. But at the time when my ancestors were living there, Huntingdonshire was its own county. Now it's been, and remember, county lines change. You will find this, and when you're doing research, that if they're close to the border of a county, you then have to go and look up county maps, because maybe that county changed. It's like with this one for the client, where I found the 2 guys who had the exact same name and the same mother's name, but were born to different fathers. They live very close to a county border. So was one of them, you know, were they actually born in the same county, or did the county lines change over time? So there's looking into that question as well. So have a plan in place for what it is you want to do. And remember, we're doing things like we're defining your research goal, gather existing information, identify the questions to answer, specify a time period and location, determine relevant records you want to search, locate available resources. It's identifying where they are, you know, databases, libraries, record collections, develop a search strategy, set a timeline on the research, document your process, evaluate and adjust, summarize your findings, and then plan the next steps. And with that, you will chip away at times, you'll chip away over time at your family tree. But if you set, instead of just going in and go, okay, who are we going to research today? Well, let's go see what we can find out about this guy. And you've got you don't have a specific destination in mind. You just want to find out any information you can on this guy. And that can lead you down a humongous rabbit hole. But if you turn around and say, okay, I've got this ancestor here, I need to find his marriage records. We know he got married to this person, but where and when did they get married? Did they get married in England, or did they wait until did they not meet until they got to New Zealand and got married? So you've got to look at those too. Or hang on, they've got this number of kids together that were born in England, and then there's a gap, and then these ones were born in New Zealand. So they obviously came to New Zealand sometime between when this one was born and this one was born. When did they come to New Zealand? So that's your research question. You know, when did this couple come to New Zealand with their kids? And what manifests can you find them on? Where can you go to find the manifest that they were on? You know, and find out when they actually arrived in New Zealand. Did they go to Australia first before they went to New Zealand? You got to look up those ones, because a lot of the ships that came from England went to Australia first, and then they may have disembarked in Australia for a little bit and then gone back on a different ship and then gone on to New Zealand. So you got to look, you know, what were the shipping routes during that time? Were there any stops that they made where they could have gotten off for a few days or a few months, lived there for a little bit, and then got on another ship to go to their final destination? So there's questions like that you need to go through and answer as well. So yes, I could go look at this family and see when they moved to New Zealand and immigrated to New Zealand, but which shipping route did they take? Because sometimes they arrived on a different ship than what they left England on. And why was that? Because they stopped somewhere off the way and got connecting planes. You know, plane lands at one airport, you've got to offboard and go get on catch your connecting flights. It's kind of like that. There was something similar to that with some of the ships. Some of the ships they stayed on, they just did a stopover in Australia and then carried on, or they may have stayed there for a few days to restock, offload all the cargo that they were carrying, reload it with the new cargo, and then go on. And they may have been there for a day or two and then left to go to New Zealand, or they may have been there for a week. But they came on the same ship from England all the way down to New Zealand with a stopover in Australia. It seemed to be the way they came, around the bottom of South Africa. Or maybe, I don't know if the canals were around at that time. But anyway, so look through your family tree, find a gap and go, okay, let's create a question around this and let's go research that one. So that's it from us for tonight. Go out, have a super fantastic